And we want to thank you for taking the time to look at the machine and basically just now in closing, we'd like to thank you for the time you take a look at this machine. We think that you agree that once you kind of take a look at all these features and add them up as the total machine, you know, again, starting about basically the heavy duty hitch, don't have in the, we want to thank you for taking the time to look at this video. We want to thank you for taking the time to watch this video and kind of take a look at we want to thank you for the time that you spent with looking at the 220 scraper, because a lot of things you take and add up all the features that we went through, talking about the hitch and having a good sizable hitch, the way the drawbar connects into the tractor, keeping the weight transfer forward, having the length of that pull to a point where it will give you the ability to turn into a tight turn and not having to worry about the duals hooking into this thing, but also controlling that weight transfer. The cushion hitch with the accumulator system up front, the laser mast to be able to have run in conjunction with the lift, the front load designs with the basically allow you to mount that mast system here. Talking about the front section pipe, handle the torsional loads much better. The depth of the frame at the trailing arm, the 22 inches, the 6 1/4 inches, the fastness of the hydraulics of the front load design, as well as how close we couple that lift cylinder into the system so we don't introduce hydraulic stress. The apron opening, the ground clearance between the front section pipe, to getting dirt out of the scraper, very key component. The response time of that lift cylinder allowed that material to keep developing that load. Coming on the floor system, hooking up rocks, concrete slabs, having a double plated floor system, having blades that you can buy locally, having a CAT component blade system on it, very important. Apron lockups to be able to do the service very clean and very easily on your machine. The apron cylinder basically opening and shutting on extension. Okay, let's just do it this way. Well, we want to thank you for taking the time to look at all these features of the machine. When you add up all the things we talked about, now we want to thank you for taking a look at this machine, and when you take a look at all the things we kind of talked about, how they interact with one another, talking about the size of that hitch pin, as well as, well, we want to thank you for taking the time to take a look at all these sections of this video. Well, we want to thank you for taking the time to look at these 4 sections of this video and see how they all add together to make this the best in class type of scraper. Again, summarizing the hitch, the big horizontal hitch pin here, the 6 inch. But we want to thank you for taking the time to take a look at this machine. We think that when you looked at all those 4 features and add them together in a total machine, how that will benefit your customers and basically put more dirt in their scraper, yielding them more money at the end of the day. So really, when you take a look at the things that we covered, talking about the hitch, moving that hitch pin closer to the tractor, the scraper version tractor, our relationship with Case, understanding how they want that hitch into there, understanding where the directions of the tractors are going, not only in just horsepower and by hydraulics and transport speeds. So we get a good understanding what's doing on that. Having a hitch basically has some adjustability to accommodate taller tires, especially when you get into our rear carriage type of systems. But more importantly, talking about the length of that pull, keeping that weight transfer under control by having that 10-foot distance from the front of that pipe to the connecting point of that machine, getting that turning radius. But that, what it does also keeps that, limits that weight transfer onto the back end of that tractor. The front section pipe, very big component. Take a look at this area, because this is the area that if you cut corners, basically you'll be paying that at the welding shop. Good vertical depth of frame, good width of frame, supporting that. Don't introduce hydraulic stress and strain by having a big, don't introduce any hydraulic, and we don't introduce any hydraulic strain on the system by having a trunnion mount cylinder, keeping that very close in here to prevent that hydraulic from having mechanical leverage, exerting this area not only just from the weight of the scrape. And we want to thank you for taking a look at these 4 features. When you combine all those features into one machine, we'll think you agree that this is the best in class scraper. When you take a look at the things we talked about, the hitch, the horizontal hitch pin being a 6-inch diameter, handle that weight and that transfer load of the scraper into the tractor, good range of motion, as well as give you the turning radius, the pull length, allowing that tire dual to come in here, but probably more importantly, give us the visibility underneath here to see that basically blade, getting the clearance to let the dirt come out of the scraper. That pull length controls the weight transfer onto that tractor. Big components. Also talking about the front load, big component to sell against a lot of those scrapers that have a rear carriage, much faster respond, be able to maintain ground speeds, keep your RPMs up, keep that load developing. Don't introduce any hydraulic mechanism loads and strains within the front section. Like we talked about, the 20-mount cylinder, a very close coupled connection point to the front section pipe. So we don't introduce a mechanical leverage. Very quick to respond, very low to additional stress. A cross member that the lift cylinders mount into integrate mass systems for GPS, laser system receivers, very easily, runs in conjunction with the blade. Talking about the bowl, heavy duty blade system, cat component blades. You can basically buy those blades locally or can buy them from us, but basically talking about that frog, having a frog with a double plated floor system. When you hook into a rock, hook into a stump, hook into a piece of concrete with 580 horsepower with a quad track, hook in those areas. Some of you cut corners on frogs, you bend floors up, you basically got a screwed scraper because that floor, if you got to push up onto it and you got ejector wall running over it, you got yourself a handful. Talking about the apron, we need to be able to get that dirt in the scraper, get it, basically open up that apron, let the dirt come in, get it out of the scraper, but probably more importantly, in those looser, drier, sandier soils, shutting that apron on basically extension. So we're using the full barrel bore diameter to close this apron, so we don't have basically, a lot of them will we use, and we use it on some of our other smaller scrapers, we're shutting the apron on retraction, so you have that rod displaced area of that oil, so you lose power. The 220 is shutting on extension, max power at this area. The hydraulic valves, allowing these hydraulic flows to basically pass through the hydraulics without really developing higher pressures, more heat. Very, very classy as far as the way that basically is handling those flow systems. And the 4-tire configuration. If you got guys that just love that John Deere offset tire, we can do that. If you got guys that want to love that John Deere or the Reynolds, or else you got that guys that love or you got that guys that like the Reynolds configuration with a gang of tires, we can do that as well. The support of the push-off framework, having a push-off being heavily supported, supporting these hydraulic flows, preventing it from buckling over backwards. We got a push-off framework to be able to do that. 4 rollers on the push-off panel, 4 rollers on the rear carriage, heavily supported, heavy flange shoulders to keep them guided, but yet also keep them moving up and down for elevation control. So we got a very quick a push-off panel is able to, and the push-off panel having to be, now the push-off panel, and again the push-off panel, having the rigidity of that push-off with a single cylinder, supporting it as wide as possible, let that material come forward without having to worry the push-off flail backwards because you got such high flow coming off these hydraulics of these tractors. And lastly, basically the back end, we have a quick hitch that you can get into a machine, hook up a second machine, and that see-through headache rack, you can see through it, hook up the second machine safely, set up your apron openings at the back end. So it's a very positive machine front to back as far as getting material in, get it out. But also what it does do is it basically, okay, we're gonna do this one last one very quicker. Now we want to basically thank you for the time you spent, take a look at this product. Now on behalf of Andrews, we'd like to thank you for taking a look at these 4 features, and you add them all together, kind of summarizing what we talked about, the big pin at the hitch, good load characteristics, and good. Now we want to thank you for taking the time to look at these 4 sections, and we kind of look at some of the summaries that we talked about. The hitch pin, basically coupled very close in the back end of the tractor, making sure your tractors and warranties are all in effect because we're not messing with the way that scraper connects into the tractor. The big large pin, the horizontal pin, the 6-inch pin to be able to handle stress and load of the high horsepower tractors and all the geometry that kind of goes through an uneven job sites. Big pins, big vertical pins, giving you the turning radius. The length of the pull allow the duals to get into here, but also controlling the amount of weight transfer coming back in, but probably more importantly, getting us the vertical depth in this area to unload scrapers without having to fall into the front section. Front section pipe, again, the main backbone of this whole front section. Starts right here, it looks basically a nice round structure. Now we want to thank you for the time you spent to take a look at these sections here of this video. We take a look at Now we want to thank you for taking the time to take a look at these sections of these videos, because really when you take a look at all the 4 sections and combine them and talk about the key features that we designed in the machine, it's the best in class scraper in a 22-yard machine and a 10.5 foot cut. Clearly, hands down, allow you to do more on your job sites and do it with a very cost-effective way, but also give you the comfort and the name that you know that can basically be there for the future. Again, talking about the way the scraper hooks into the tractor, making sure your tractor stay within warranty, because this is a balanced approach. There's companies out there making large scrapers, 33-yard, 53-yard machines, overweighting the tractors. So when you get a tractor, you get this kind of investment into it, you have a rear axle go out, basically once they hear that there's a 33-yard scraper on it, really start to question about your ability to get that supplied under warranty. Pull length, getting that weight transfer coming in here, getting the vertical depth to get scrapers unloaded. Talking about this 16-inch diameter front section pipe, big key. This is the backbone of the front section. Handle those torsional loads much better. Really beat to death the front load design, how that translates into bigger and quicker loads, because the response time is much faster here than moving your gang tires back here. Allow that load to develop, but also the depth of frame to be able to handle the shock loads of basically fully loaded scrapers going down a haul road. Good 22 inches depth of frame, good basically 6 1/4 inches width. So we got a very stout transition between the pipe and the trailing arm. And then we focal down to the bowl. The apron, again, talking about the apron, to be able to allow that material to capture the dirt inside the scraper, allow it to fall into it, allow you to load easier, but probably more importantly, come time to unload it, get it out of the way, let the dirt come out of the apron. So once it gets past the apron, we need good height at this area. Let the dirt fall forward, get out of the scraper and level off so the guy can get that elevation kind of knocked down. Shutting that apron, big key. Another thing, if you got some sandier soils, we're using basically the full bore diameter because we're shutting on extension. So basically it allows that full power of that cylinder, that 6-inch bored cylinder, to give us the force necessary to shut that apron, especially in those softer conditions. The tires, inline, offset, whatever you want to do, you have the freedom and choice to be able to do that with our machine. Move your insides out, move them outsides back, whatever you want to do, we can accommodate that kind of configuration. The push-off panel, lastly, good heavy support system. Again, we're basically identifying the hydraulic flow as being the biggest target, having enough framework to support those push-off panels from pushing back and folding back because of the speed of operation. Headache rack, safety, hooking up that second machine, setting that apron up on when you're basically loading tandem scrapers before you start loading. Good key characteristics, safe characteristics. So when you take a look at all these machines and all these components we talked about, and also combine the fact that we've been doing this for 60 years and we're one of the only sole manufacturers that has been ongoing manufacturing pull type scrapers and never went through a bankruptcy. We've always kept improving, kept developing, and supporting our customers throughout all the good times and bad. And that's really a key component. A lot of our dealers come back and say, boy, I had this brand or I had that brand, but they got changed, they got bought, they went through bankruptcy. I got kind of left hanging because I can't support this customer, this part, this simple, the blade, the cylinder. We basically support those parts every day. We've been doing it since 1953 and we plan to do it for another 100 years. So we appreciate the time you spent with us, taking a look at this machine. We'll see once you get a chance to hook this on your tractor, get on your job site, I think you'll agree that Ashland's the company that allow you to do more, give you good value, but yet give you the support that you need and expect out of a customer in owning a product. Thanks.